it is. We've got some breaking news. We've got a lot of it. But there's some breaking news. The Tariffs Supreme Court has struck down the village idiots' tariffs. Not that we didn't know that was going to happen anyway. But the Supreme Court has surprised us, right? The Supreme Court has surprised us not infrequently. I'm certainly among all of the things that I am not, right? I am not an expert on the Constitution of the United States of America, right? I don't know the Constitution. I admit it. But, I can Google it, right? And I can follow the news, and I know, like everybody else does, that the tariffs, that based on the Constitution of the United States of America, tariffs are controlled by Congress, not by the village idiot Donald Trump. Hey, Z, how are you? You're the first one here today. Thank you for joining me today. The Constitution is clear on this, right? So it was almost a certainty, right, that the Supreme Court was. Hey, Tina. Hey, Paul. How are you guys? I'm talking. I know this as the live is kind of starting to populate up. I'm just seeing you guys come on, and I just wanted to get right into it today, right? Because this is pretty big news. I'm sure you guys know about it. Hey, Ann, how are you? Supreme Court ruled that the tariffs are unconstitutional. Now again, it's not a surprise, but a surprise, right? I hope you're feeling better, Tina. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you're here today. It really would have been a stretch. And I know this Supreme Court, I'm about to say it really would have been a stretch for this Supreme Court of the United States, this incantation of the Supreme Court, for lack of a better term, right? It would have been a stretch for them to find a way to distort the language of the Constitution, right? To distort the law in order to accommodate the whims of the village idiot Donald Trump when it came to tariffs. It really would have been a stretch. And I didn't, as much as time to time, I listen on SCOTUS blog to Supreme Court, from time to time, Supreme Court hearings. I find them interesting. If I had all day, sometimes I would listen to it all the time because I like that kind of stuff, right? But even so, right? When I was listening to the argument that the Solicitor General was making for the Trump administration, why tariffs are legal, why Donald Trump has the power. And the guy, I can't remember his name, the Solicitor General is a brilliant fucking guy. He doesn't belong in the Trump administration. He's on the wrong side of history on every issue. But if you ever listen to this guy, they use the same guy. I think his name is Sawyer. They use the same guy every single time for the Supreme Court, the government. Every time. And they go to the Supreme Court a lot. And this guy, Sawyer, he's brilliant. He's way too smart for Donald Trump and company, but they have him, right? And he's able to, I've listened to him argue at the Supreme Court many times now, and he is able to twist, turn, manipulate, deceive, obfuscate. Is that a word? Am I using that as the right word? He is a fair point, Tina. That's why they have him there. He is a absolute just master wordsmith and an incredibly creative interpreter of the law so as to accommodate the whims of an idiot, right? Because you really have to do, some sort of mental and verbal gymnastics with the law over and over again to accommodate Donald Trump's crimes and just his disregard for the Constitution. And very, very few people are effective at it. Pam Bondi, for example, right? They're wholly incapable of doing it and coming out looking like anything other than a sycophantic, half-witted, borderline sociopathic, lying buffoons, right? But Sawyer does not fall into that category. He's a fucking genius, right? So when I listened to him talking about this idea that this law, what was it called? The IEEP or something? I just did a post on it. I already forgot the name of it. The internet. I wish Gamer Vet Dad was here. I don't see him on yet. He could give me the actual name of the law. It was the law that the Trump administration, that Peter Navarro and the rest of the creeps in the Trump administration used to justify his illegal tariffs. Right? It was the International Economic Security Protection Act or some shit, right? I don't know what it is. It was a law that was passed in 1977, right? And it basically grants the president the power to control foreign trade in the event of a national emergency, of a security threat so significant that the president of the United States would need, hey, Jordan, how are you? Would need to interfere with international trade and impose restrictions in some capacity or something else. Tariffs are never mentioned in there, by the way, right? So they just chose that law because it was a law, right, that Peter Navarro or somebody knew about, right? So they just, I really, look, maybe that's not how it went down. Maybe it was more intellectual. Maybe it was more competent than the way I'm perceiving it. So maybe my analysis and my perception isn't fair. It's just what I think. So this is not fact. This is, it could be fiction. It's total fucking speculation, right? But my speculation is that this confederacy of half-wits that surrounds the village idiot. The village idiot just came out and, as he said during the campaign, I love terror. It's the best word. I love the word. It's a great word. We need the terror. We're not going to get screwed anymore. I love make the terrorists happen. And then Peter Navarro and his goon squad went out and had to find something. They had to find some law. And because I don't think any of them are legal scholars, none of them are Solicitor General Sawyer, because I don't think he was involved at that point. Maybe he was. These buffoons went and started looking for a law, just like you and I would. We just go to congress.gov and put in law that gives the president, search for Google, some law that gives the president the power to control trade, and 1977 International Federal fucking Protection, whatever the fuck act it is, comes up, and we'll use that. And they did. And I truly believe that's what happened. Or some random version of that is what is. Yes, Tina. I imagine the idiot is furious over this. For folks out in we're streaming today, and we just yesterday I was just hit my 1,000+ subscribers on Instagram, so I can go live. We've got Instagram here today for the second day in a row. We've got YouTube and Substack. And for those of you out in Instagram and YouTube land, I can't see your live chat yet. I can't see your comments yet. I have to kind of figure out the tech on that and how to integrate that into my streaming platform. I haven't figured that out yet, so I'm going to get there, guys. But when I look at my iPad, I can see my stream on Substack. And Tina just mentioned, I heard he's furious. She's talking about the village idiot over the Supreme Court decision, and he has a plan B. Tina, doesn't have a plan anything. He has a fucking plan crazy, right? That's his plan. I want it. You give it to me and I want it. I'm very upset. I can't believe I gave them all jobs. I put them on the Supreme Court. You gotta. Well, and now they're not very loyal. They're not loyal to me. Make it, Peter. Peter, you gotta make it happen. Peter, make it happen. Peter Navarro, I love you. He's a great guy, Peter. Right? He's freaking out. Maybe he's throwing his fucking overcooked steak and ketchup and Diet Coke. Remember that during the first Trump administration at the walls, right? But the administration has been talking about a plan B for a while now. They've been saying, multiple folks from the Trump administration, because they saw the writing on the wall. As dumb as they are, I think just like we did, they invariably saw that the Supreme Court, as much as they like to kiss the ass of Donald Trump and the people around him, they just couldn't. It would have been such a profound and profane stretch for that to happen, right? It would have been such a remarkable stretch for the Supreme Court to just literally, ignore the language of fuck. I just did an Instagram post, and now I can't even remember Article 1, Section 8, or whatever the hell it is in the Constitution. I'm certainly no constitutional scholar any more than the village idiot Donald Trump is. This is why, I miss Gamer Vet Dad when he's not here, because he can keep me honest and fact check me on the things that I should know but I don't know. But wherever it is, whatever part of the Constitution says what it says, it's pretty clear, right, that Congress has the power to control tariffs, right? So it would have been as egregious as the Supreme Court is, right? It would have been such a remarkably egregious and profane stretch for the village, for even for the conservative members of Supreme Court to vote for the administration. Now, I know it was a 6-3 decision. I didn't see any reporting of the breakdown of the decision. I don't know if any of you guys put it in the chat if you have. I did look for that. I don't know. I can almost guess who the three are. I mean, I'm sure it's Thomas, Alito. You couldn't be Gorsuch, because Gorsuch was remarkably, I would be stunned if it was Gorsuch, but I don't think so. I can't imagine, because he was remarkably critical of the Trump administration during the hearings. Kavanaugh, maybe the drunk. I don't know. I mean, if he was, and again, I can't even imagine Kavanaugh. He was fairly critical, but if I remember correctly, during the hearings, but he did sort of try to give the administration an off ramp a little bit, and maybe if he woke up and he had a on decision day and he had a couple too many beers. I love beer. I mean, you guys remember that during his hearing. He was crying and he was, because he was too emotional, right? During his confirmation hearings when Lindsey Graham finally was like, now Justice Kavanaugh, or he wasn't Justice. Now Judge Kavanaugh, you have been treated so unfairly. It's not right, and I'm not going to stand for it. How do you feel? I love beer. I love beer. Remember that? So he's, so maybe he woke up on decision day and he had 4 beers before he came in. And then it was like, yeah, I think that'll be the way to go. I'm going to go with the Trump administration on this one. So maybe Kavanaugh. I can't imagine Alito, Kavanaugh, and Tom. All right. So that's it, Tina. Thank you, because I couldn't have imagined. Thank you. I couldn't have imagined that Amy Coney Barrett or Gorsuch, of all people. I mean, Gorsuch, you could imagine them in other things, but not on this. That they would have been the ones. So that's. Thank you, Tina, for clarifying that. That makes sense. And I honestly, again, just random speculation that is salacious. And I accept that. My guess is that Kavanaugh had a few too many beers on decision day, and then he came in and made that decision. Because it just is insane. It's insane. It is. The language is plain, and even if you're a constitutional traditionalist. What do they call them? It's not traditionalist. I can't think of the name of what they refer to. A constitutional originalist, I think, is the term, where conservative justices will look at the language of the Constitution as it was written only, and the language is just abundantly clear. So I don't know how they could have seen it any other way, to be honest. And I don't think anybody is surprised, including the folks in the Trump administration, are surprised by this decision. It'll be interesting to see what their plan Bs are, and it'll be. I want to say that it'll be interesting to see how and if the tariffs are sort of rolled back, and how Americans who have paid the tariffs are paid back. Like, I want to say that would be interesting to see, and it would be, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. There are 1,000 ways that the Trump administration, I think, can continue to break the law. We've seen that over and over again. There is no shame. The people in this administration have no decency, and they have no shame whatsoever. So it's not as if they're going to be humiliated or embarrassed, or somehow, morally responsible for accepting the Supreme Court decision as it is, moving away from tariffs, and beginning to explore a way to pay people back. They're not going to go there. They're going to continue to play legal games. They're going to come up with some other bullshit law. I don't know what I haven't done any research yet. I'm sure there's reporting already on what laws they hope to manipulate next. And they're just going to play whack-a-mole with the courts. They'll make this decision, and they'll come up with their new, whatever the new rule or the new law is that they're going to be using as an excuse. They'll immediately be sued in the lower courts. It'll take months and months and months to work its way through the lower courts. It'll find its way back up to the Supreme Court, and we'll be right back where we are again. And I think they'll just keep doing this for the next 4 years. And I don't see that changing. But before I pontificate more, let's read a little bit of the reporting so that I don't, screw up all of the facts before I, all of this has been opinion, and let's just read more of the reporting and some of the reporting. This is just from CNBC. The Supreme Court on Friday struck down a huge chunk of President Donald Trump's far-reaching tariff agenda. The law that undergirds those import duties, quote, does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. The majority ruled. Let me read that again. That was the majority ruling. Is the law that undergirds those import duties, quote, does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. Now, it would have been better, right, if the Supreme Court would have had more courage and would have said clearly the president of the United States does not have the power to regulate tariffs under any circumstances according to the Constitution. They could have stepped out on a limb, and they could have cut him off at the knees and cut the administration off at the knees and said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. There's no more of this. It's over. There is, you're not going to play games with the Constitution anymore. And then they would have had to find the Trump administration. I think if the Supreme Court would have done that, the Trump administration would have just had to find an actual valid excuse to do it. They couldn't just cherry pick whatever thing they want to cherry pick next, whatever law, whatever rule, whatever, right? But here we are, and we're back in that same situation, and this is exactly what they're going to do. But let's continue. That's all CNBC has is that check back for updates. All right, let's get a little bit more color on this. Okay, the Supreme Court delivered a major. This is just NBC News. Again, everybody's reporting the same thing. The Supreme Court delivered a major blow to President Donald Trump, ruling Friday that he exceeded his authority when imposing sweeping tariffs using a law reserved for national emergency. The justices, divided 6-3, held that Trump's aggressive approach to tariffs on products entering the United States from across the world was not permitted under the 1977 law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The ruling invalidates many but not all of Trump's tariffs. His tariffs on aluminum steel are not. The justification for that was not that law. The justification for that was some other kind of law. I don't remember the name of the law, but it had something to do with like a threat to our own industries from foreign industries. It was another bunch of bullshit, but it was a completely different rule. The White House had no immediate comment on the ruling, but Trump called it a disgrace after being informed about it during a meeting with governors, according to a person familiar with his reaction. He also said he had a backup plan. The person said, "Now the idiots, let me just, remind you, the village idiot has no backup plan. He doesn't know anything. My primary job as a political influencer in the era of the second Trump administration is to always remind you that he's an imbecile, because we often forget that he's an idiot. We often forget that in addition to being he would be an idiot if he was mentally stable. He would be a mentally stable idiot. He's always been an idiot, right? But he's also, in addition to being an imbecile, he's severely mentally ill. Whether his diagnosis, if it's ever made, is malignant narcissism or whatever, he's seriously mentally ill. He's a very, very sick man, and he's a very, very dumb man. So when the village idiot said, "I have a plan B," he doesn't have a plan B. If anybody were to ask him, there is a plan B from the people around him. But if anybody were to ask him, and I wish the reporters would challenge him on his stupidity, if anybody were to ask him what his plan B is, he would say something along the lines of, "There's a plan. It's very good. There's a lot of people, a lot of smart people are working on it, and they're telling me I came up with it. I have a great plan, and you're gonna see it in 2 weeks. It's gonna be a great plan, and in 2 weeks I'm gonna implement it. There's gonna be trillions of dollars. We brought in trillions of dollars, and Biden lost the election in 2020. It was stolen, and that's kind of what you would hear. So." And let me just add one more thing about the village idiot himself. He is, in addition to being stupid, severely mentally ill. There are a group of mental health professionals and medical professionals who are finally finding the courage to come out, and they are diagnosing him. And there was a from that community. We heard from a medical reporter that she felt that he might have had Alzheimer's disease, but many in that community came out and said it's not Alzheimer's, it's frontotemporal dementia. But whatever it is, whatever cognitive decline, whatever illness is also going on that is attributing to his severe cognitive decline, whether it's Alzheimer's or frontotemporal dementia or something else, that is also happening. And we don't need proof that that's happening because we are watching him decline cognitively. So it's again, I feel like it's my responsibility, if I achieve nothing else, to just remind you that he's an idiot. He has no backup plan. He doesn't know anything. He's incapable of knowing anything. And whatever plan is being implemented on his behalf by, again, Peter Navarro, and I don't know I can't remember the name of his trade negotiator, whatever the fuck his name is, Howard the Putz Lutnick, who is the commerce secretary and now latest Epstein associate named in the files. Um, Treasury Secretary and dingbat by choice, Scott Bessent. This confederacy of half-wits by choice and half-wits by circumstance and half-wits by birth, who are coming up with the actual, um, plan B, are not Donald. I just felt it was necessary to remind you of that. The White House had no immediate comment on the ruling, blah, blah, blah. I read that already. As recently as Thursday, Trump bemoaned the possibility of tariffs being struck down. Quote, without tariffs, this country would be in such trouble right now, he said. Despite Trump's rhetoric, stocks rallied on the news of the ruling. Let's take a look. Let's just go to, hang on, let me just go here. Let's just update the ticker here. Oh, hang on, I went to the wrong. Hang on, CNBC. Hang on, guys, just bear with me. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 130 points. The S&P 500 is up 41 points. I mean, I wouldn't call this. I mean, if I wouldn't call, I mean, the Dow Jones being up 130 points is significant so quickly, but I wouldn't call this. The Nasdaq is up 230 points. I'd argue, okay, that's a rally. I don't. Are we going to see a 500-point rally? Or are we going to see like a, we're just up 0.29%, though. That's not that doesn't strike me as a massive response by the stock market yet to to this news. I mean, this doesn't strike me as something you wouldn't see every day because of other news. If we're up 500 points in the Dow and 1,000 points in the Nasdaq, let's see where Amazon stock is. That might tell us something. Let's just go to Amazon, because Amazon's a retail stock, and this is so Amazon is, in the last couple of hours, they're up. So it's up about 2%. So again, you're not seeing. I don't know. What about Walmart? Let's see. I mean, is the stock market really rallying? Hang on. Let's see. Let me pull up Walmart stock. So Walmart is down overall, but that could be for other reasons. But that's the month over month. We're just in the one day. So Walmart's not rallying; it's sort of bouncing around. So I don't know. I'm a little and me too. I don't know everything about the stock exchange, Tina. I know just enough because I have some stocks and I like to cover it a little bit, but it just doesn't. From what I'm seeing, I think the news is being a little sensationalist about the stock market right now. I don't know that we're seeing that much of a rally in the stock market right now. Irrespective, let me just pull up go back to our reporting here. So without tariffs, this country would be in such trouble right now. Blah blah blah. Despite Trump's rhetoric, stocks rallied on the news of the ruling. I think it's a little rally. That doesn't mean it's not going to get bigger, but it doesn't look to me like the stock market is going bonkers. About this, the ruling was authored by Chief Justice John Roberts, who was joined by the liberal justices and two fellow conservative justices, Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett. Quote, the president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope, Roberts wrote. But the Trump administration, quote, points to no statute, end quote, in which Congress has previously said that the language in the IEEPA could apply to tariffs. He added, I wonder, because I'm always interested in the politics, right? That's where my mind goes all the time, right? So I wonder what we're going to see in Congress right now. I wonder how this is going to affect the politics of everything, right? Because in an unrelated matter, right? The uh, the House, crazy and pretend crazy, GOP members of the House passed the SAVE Act, right? That's the Voter Suppression Act, in essence, the Voter ID Act, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? And it's stuck in the Senate right now because you do have 50 senators, thanks to Susan Collins, who is always very concerned but never actually does anything. And she was very concerned about this, but she still fucking voted for it like she always does. Um, but uh, but it's still stuck there because Democrats are inevitably going to filibuster the legislation. It's not going to go anywhere, right? And the village idiot really wants them. He really wants John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, to once and for all nix the filibuster so that they get the SAVE Act passed. And the village idiot might think that that's going to give him a chance to cheat in the midterms and keep his, Republican majority, right? And Thune has been resistant to getting rid of the filibuster. He has shown he's been a chicken shit GOP senator like most of the rest of them, but he has shown a modicum of courage, pushing back, not rhetorically. He's not saying, Thune isn't saying, Donald Trump, I'm not, Mr. President, I will not do this. I will not get rid of the filibuster. But he's very careful and cautious, and he just doesn't get rid of it. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up in the context of this discussion that we're having right now is as the administration searches now for some other justifications to keep the tariffs in place, right? I wonder if there's going to be an effort to try to push crazy and pretend crazy members of the House and chicken shit GOP senators to draft legislation to amend the Constitution to give Trump the power to control tariffs. I don't think that would work. I don't think that would work at all. But I wonder if, because there are no moderate Republicans anymore, but Republican Republican House members like the guys from New York, and others that are in tough reelection races in 2026 probably wouldn't go that far anyway. They wouldn't give that to Donald Trump. But I wouldn't be surprised if we, of course, so Tina's saying, wow, can that happen? And anything, look, Congress can pass any laws that it wants, right? The power to amend the Constitution sits with Congress. So if you had a situation where the idiot put enough pressure on, and MAGA Mike Johnson would go along with anything Donald Trump wants to do. So if the imbecile calls up Mike Johnson and says, I want you to do something. I want you to get an amendment in there. I want to change the Constitution. I want the power for tariffs. Mike Johnson would say, okay, Mr. President, and then he would find a way to try to normalize that to the caucus, and he would find a way to make speeches that would normalize that. I could hear Mike Johnson saying something along the lines like, that's the way it's always been, and that's the way it should be. The founders, I have a terrible Mike Johnson impression, so this is just for dramatic purposes. It's not for actual, an actual authentic Mike Johnson impression. So just bear with me for now. It's for my hang on. I think I just got a fact check and a good one. Terry, an amendment to the Constitution has to be ratified by 2/3 of the states. I stand corrected. Forget everything I just said. I'm wrong. I assumed that it could be, but Terry just corrected me, and I appreciate those fact checks in real time because it's not infrequently that I'm talking out my ass. So, and any Republicans, if there's, I know we're out on YouTube now and TikTok. If there's any MAGA folks that are out there, I want you to see that it's okay to be wrong, right? You can be wrong publicly and in real time, and somebody could point that out And you can own that. And you're still okay. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. So I was just babbling on about what I envisioned to be this potential something that wouldn't happen anyway. It was just a what if kind of situation. This potential situation where where Congress could pass a law with a simple majority in the House, a simple majority in the House and a simple majority in the Senate, ratify the Constitution. But Terry is fact checking me in real time on this that it couldn't happen anyway. So shut the fuck up, Mitch. Terry didn't say shut the fuck up, Mitch. I'm adding that. That's not what Terry said about putting words in Terry's mouth. But it's okay to be right. I saw that fact check and it makes perfect sense to me. So I'm going to stop talking about that because it's wrong. And we'll just move on. So anyway, if there's any MAGA folks out there, that's what it looks like when you make a mistake and you own it, and I'm no less of a man now, and it's all good. Irrespective. Forget that line of reasoning because it can't happen, because there's no chance in hell that 2/3 of the states would agree to let the president of the United States have control over tariffs. Let me get back to the article now. Justice Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Samuel Alito dissented. Surprise, surprise. It's a rare setback for the administration at the Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority since Trump began his second term in January. Business owners who had to pay the tariffs and challenged them in court expressed relief at the ruling. Quote, "These new tariffs were arbitrary, unpredictable, and bad business." Victor Schwartz, who runs a New York-based wine and spirits importer, VOS Selection, said in a statement, "Thankfully, courts at every level recognized these duties for what they were: unconstitutional government overreach," he added. I couldn't agree more. Hey, Najiri, how are you? I don't think Victor is going to get the relief he so desperately needs, though, because they're not going to let this go. And for business people like Victor, whose lives and livelihoods and financial well-being, who have built companies, who have been thrown into complete disarray, he deserves more than anyone else. People like Victor deserve restitution. They deserve for these tariffs to end today. They deserve for the U.S. government to pay back them. And that would be very complicated, right? Who gets paid back for the tariffs? Is it the importer that had to pay more money, that had to subsequently sell his spirits to Victor at a higher price that Victor then had to pay and couldn't afford? Probably not. So it would be Victor, right? Who would get, because Victor had to spend more money to buy the products to resell, right? So and the importer probably made his or her money back by charging Victor more because the importer had to. But is it really Victor? Then Victor had to raise his prices on rum, right? Or whatever. And then all the consumers who bought that at a higher price from Victor, they had to pay extra. So is it Victor that has to get paid back? Nobody's getting paid back anyway. This is another rhetorical nonsense thing that I'm talking about, but irrespective. Is it Victor that would get paid back, or would it be all of the people who bought booze from Victor? Right? Well, I mean, all right, well, you figure, all right, they all bought booze from Victor, and Victor charged more, so he got paid back. So it should be the consumer, except the problem is that Victor didn't sell all his booze because his booze is too expensive. Victor lost a shit ton of money, right? Trying to stay afloat, right? So Victor probably has a lot of alcohol that he hasn't been able to sell, that he's that he's stuck with that he paid for. So how would Victor be able to? I guess Victor has an inventory list. So would Victor send that to some government agency? And then that government agency would figure out how to determine how much Victor gets back and how much all the consumers who bought Victor's booze. And does Victor have the contact information for everybody that's come into his liquor store and bought a bottle of wine at 10% higher or 34% higher? No. It is a clusterfuck of epic proportions if you try to think about it. And that was by the way, that was one of the arguments that Solicitor General Sawyer made or tried to make in the Supreme Court. Sawyer, and I said in the beginning of this live, I think he's a genius. I think he's a remarkable wordsmith. I think he is an incredible manipulator of the law. I think he's an evil genius because he's on the wrong side of history, but he's the guy that argued these things for the Trump administration, right? He's the guy that same guy, always goes to the Supreme Court for the Trump administration, and he's brilliant. He's a prick. He's fucking brilliant, right? But one of the arguments that he made when he was that to the Supreme Court was that if you strike down this law, how the hell is everybody going to get paid back? How does everybody get made whole? That argument didn't carry a lot of weight with obviously with the 6 justices that ruled against the Trump administration. But I bring it up now just for the reason that, as I'm reading this article with you guys, I feel for, I feel for all of us, that are living in a state of unaffordability because of the tariffs. But I really feel for these small business owners, these retailers who've gone out of business or who are on the precipice of going out of business, and they don't have the time, the energy to sit here and follow politics like I do, like we do. And they have probably a false sense of relief right now that because the Supreme Court passed this law, things are going to suddenly get better, that the tariffs are actually going to go away. And they're reading this clickbait bullshit that I just read to you in NBCnews.com, that the stock market is rallying and everything, and it's not. It's maybe it will by the end of the day, but it's up 200 points, and that's a response. It's up 0.2 something percent, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? That's responsive to the tariffs, but it's not a fucking crazy rally. Maybe it will be later. We'll see how the day goes, but it's already 12 o'clock, right? So, we're halfway through the day in terms of the stock market already, almost halfway through the day. So all of this reporting and this clickbait, I fear, is going to give these retailers, who are not immersed in politics, an unfair, unnecessary sense of security that Victor might be thinking that, all right, the tariffs are going to go away now. They're going to start rolling them down, and I'm going to be okay. And maybe even we're going to get paid back. And none of that's going to happen. None of that's going to happen. And I feel like the reporting, not infrequently do I criticize legacy media lately. But I think I just think that story needs to be told properly right now, and I don't think they're doing it. I think it's a victory for democracy. It's a victory for the rule of law. It's a victory for the Constitution, and I don't take that lightly at this moment in time. I'm pleased with the Supreme Court's decision, but I think legacy media outlets have a responsibility, and independent media outlets, have a responsibility while we're talking about the celebratory nature of finally getting a rare, appropriate decision by the Supreme Court of the United States to shut this maniac down. Um, that should be tapered because you have a responsibility to inform people. That should be tapered with a dose of reality that that the Trump administration is not going to give up. That they fully plan to manipulate some other law to sustain this tariff nonsense, and that nobody is getting paid back anytime soon. Tina, I can't wait to see Trump and his regime go down in flames. You and me both, Tina. You and me both. Gamer Vet Dad, all those lies are about to be exposed, Terry. Let me go back in the chat a little bit further. Terry, I think companies are going to sue to get their money back. Consumers should be able to do a class action suit. This is the way to show the contempt this country has for its government. And anyway, what about the money we were supposed to get back for so much of the checks we were all going to get, right? I don't. That's the checks are laughable. Terry, it's a great point, and I don't know. I could see a band of small companies, a class action suit like Victor's company, this New York-based wine and spirits importer, VOS Selection. I could see them filing a class action lawsuit by, when you have 1,000 of them, to try to get paid back. I could see that mattering a little bit. I could see attorneys general from multiple blue states getting behind that as well. But what I don't see are the big players, the Amazon, Walmart, the companies who could really, really make a difference. I mean, what I think with these smaller companies, I think what we would see is a class action lawsuit with all of them, backed by attorneys general from all different states, winning over after months and months and months in lower courts. And then I think we would see this go to the Supreme Court, this payback thing, and I think you would see the Supreme Court just squash it. And I'm usually not so pessimistic about that, but I hope it happens. I think it'll happen. I don't know if there's going to be some weird way that they can kind of twist the law around and make the argument that they can't be sued because, although the tariffs are not, they're no longer arguing that the tariffs are legal because of this 1977 law, but this 1943 law is now our reasoning, and because that's still sort of pending litigation right now, you can't really sue us for the 1977 decision. Like I could see shit like that coming up. I could just see this getting caught up in the courts for months and months and months, and I could just see it going to the Supreme Court, and the chicken shits on the Republican side of the Supreme Court are just like, there's no way we can do it. Just forget about it. It's too complicated. And that being the end of it. And I wish I could be more positive about it, but I just don't see it. Gamer Vet Dad, press the advantage, question where the money is, where are they getting the funds to pay back, and when is it getting released? Look, I agree. Look, I as pessimistic as I am about the outcome of any effort to hold the administration accountable and to hold the government accountable, the federal government, because that is the administration, the politics are devastating. And Gamer Vet Dad, I don't know where this fits into, how you factor this into your algorithm when it comes to the the Nixon triggers, the Nixon-like triggers, and the eventual fall of the Trump administration completely, where he becomes a lame duck president forever. You know, so I think the politics of it are. And by the way, guys, the politics. If Trump wasn't so crazy, and he wasn't so dumb, and he wasn't so hyper committed to never being able to be wrong, right? And he wasn't so severely mentally ill, he would, and he had any sort of politi- political. He used to have a, a political survival instinct. He used to have that, but that's gone. I think the frontotemporal dementia has completely disintegrated that. If he even had any sort of a political survival instinct left, he would use this as an off ramp, right? He would know that the American public would forget how big of a dick he is in a year. They would forget about the tariffs. They would forget about inflation. They would forget about how expensive everything has been, right? In a year. And he would just say right now, the Supreme Court was wrong. I don't agree with the decision, but we're going to follow it. We're going to follow the rule of law. And his approval rating would go up 5 points instantly. Not that I would want that to happen, but I believe it would happen instantly. The idiot has an off ramp now. He could get rid of all the tariffs. He could get involved in this effort to figure out how to pay back the American people. And he could reset the presidency. But he's too dumb and he's too fucking crazy. So the destructive politics of doubling down now and finding some other excuse to keep the tariffs, keep the tariffs in position I think is a big part of his a big further part of, I've been saying it for months and months and months, guys. It's the economy, aka the tariffs, and it's the Epstein cover-up. That's the end of this presidency. And again, what I haven't brought it up in a while, and I just saw Justin Wolfers. Justin Wolfers is my favorite economist of the moment. You guys I'm sure you've seen him on cable news or here on Substack. He's a University of Michigan, originally from Australia. He's now, he's been a U.S. citizen forever, and he's a University of Michigan professor of economics, and he's just fantastic. He's a fantastic guy. We love Wolfert. We love Justin. He's a great guy. I would love to. I just saw him on Waj Ali's Substack. I was watching him a little earlier today, and I would love to get Justin on this, on here someday, and I will. I DM him like once a month, but sooner or later we're going to get him on here. I don't know how, but sooner or later. But I really want to ask him this question, because what I worry about is the politics of this moment are devastating for Trump. The fact that he's going to double down and triple down are devastating for Trump. I think I wouldn't even be surprised if we see them go more tariff crazy because of this. If they need to prove how big their dicks are and that they're real men, and real men can't get told by the Supreme Court that they can't be told what to do, and he just threatens somebody else. Well, who the fuck knows? Maybe it'll be, maybe it'll be Canada again. He'll find something to be mad about Canada. We're going to do 200% on Canada. I wouldn't be surprised if we go through a whole new tariff drama, especially if the idiot doesn't, start a war with Iran to distract from the Epstein files, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the distraction becomes a whole new tariff thing, right? And what I worry about, what I want Justin Wolfers to come on our live and tell me that I'm crazy and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I worry about an economic disaster still. Because if Trump had the political common sense to step away right now and to take advantage of the off-ramp and slowly ride the political wave back up to benefit him right now with the tariffs going away. Uh, the potentiality of an economic disaster completely disappears, right? We'd still be completely isolated. It's too late for that. Uh, everybody else, Canada, Mexico, the EU, Great Britain, China, Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia, countries like Cambodia and Vietnam and Thailand, Australia, they've all either completed or close to completion for their own unilateral trade deals with each other and their own regional trade deals with each other. We are isolated. We don't fucking matter. We have no more leverage. It's over with. It's over with. And if you didn't think it was over with, the fact that Canada is importing, I don't know how many $1 billion worth of electric cars from China, that could never have happened due to the North American Free Trade Agreement, and then whatever Trump's version of that was the same thing, the MCPA or whatever. You would have never seen that. But that was the final fuck you to the United States in terms of making the point that we are isolated. We are done. We don't matter. Prime Minister Carney made it clear, we don't matter. I'm bringing in cheap electric vehicles from China. And guess what? If I'm bringing in those fucking vehicles, I'm going to build out infrastructure to support those cheap vehicles. We're not bringing in your shitty overpriced Teslas by that white nationalist creep who's going to get $1 trillion for building them. Fuck that. We're not bringing any of that in. Keep your shit. Keep your Rivians, right? Keep your Lucids. Keep your overpriced luxury cars, electric cars. Keep your fucking gas guzzlers. We don't want your Chevys anymore. We don't need your Fords. Fuck off. We're going to work with Japan, and we're going to figure out how to bring in, our RAV4 hybrids and electric RAV4s, and we're going to work with the Chinese, and we're going to get everybody in Canada into electric vehicles. It's over. America is over. America is over as the leader of international trade. The new president of the United States in 2028 is going to have a hell of a time reestablishing America into the new world order of trade. And it's going to be weird because we are not going to be the leaders. We are going to be someone a country with no manufacturing and no leverage, trying to figure out how to be able to buy shit at a fair price. And that's where we're headed. So I want to ask Justin Wolfers. Took me a while. I was rambling, guys. It took me a while to get to this point. But I want to ask Justin if we are facing economic calamity, or I can stop worrying about that, right? If Donald Trump goes batshit crazy with tariffs again and things go south, are we going to become Venezuela? Are we going to become Argentina? Or are we going to become Turkey when things were really bad in Turkey? Because I think so. Or we take that off the table? And if Justin says, well, mate, I don't, my Justin Wolfers is terrible, but I'm going to work on it. I'm going to give it to you anyway. Well, mate, I don't know if we can do, I got to work on an Australian accent too. I had one. It comes and goes. But I think I can't do it. I can't channel him right now. But Justin, I want Justin to tell me I'm full of shit, and I don't know what I'm talking about. Because after April 2nd, Liberation Day, you all remember, I've talked about this a million times already in the lives, you all remember that after Liberation Day, right, everybody, foreign investors and institutional investors started running away from U.S. Treasury bonds. The dollar, which was the most stable currency in the world, stopped being the most stable currency in the world because the United States, which is the country that basically is the dollar, became the international economic problem. So yields all of a sudden went up on U.S. Treasury bonds. Treasury couldn't sell them. People were trying to get rid of, and countries were trying to get rid of their bonds. The yields went up, which basically means the percentage that people would get for buying a bond when the bond matures had to go up because they had to become more attractive because nobody wanted them. And people were leaving in droves. And our entire national debt of $38 trillion or 39, whatever the hell it is now, is funded by borrowed money, by those bonds. And if people stop buying those bonds, we cannot fund our debt and we are broke. And I don't mean like broke, like, you know, I got to find a way to get by with $150 this week. So I'm going to have to cut out dining out, and I'm going to have to get $7 in gas instead of $30 in gas. And I'm going to have to, be a little more careful at the supermarket. I mean, broke, like there's no dollars there, right? That's it. There's nothing there. If those treasury bonds, if we stop selling those bonds, we have the United States, there is cash flowing, there's liquidity in the system. But on paper, the U.S. has no money. It's just a crazy thought, right? Perhaps, Tina. I hope not. And that's what scares me. It scares me. And somebody got through to the idiot 2 weeks after Liberation Day. Somehow somebody got through to the idiot. And remember, he came on TV and he's like, "We're gonna change all the tariffs to 10%, but 145% on China," and everybody knew that that's when taco began, right? Trump always chickens out. That's when, that Financial Times reporter started talking about him being taco, and that's kind of stuck with him ever since, right? But nobody knew, when economists started talking about that finally, when we're in the midst of it, nobody knew what that was going to look like. If the U.S. suddenly was broke and the dollar was worth nothing. I mean, something, but nothing, right? But there was a fear that it could have wound up being economic catastrophe. And that's the one thing that still concerns me. I don't worry about hardship. I hate it. It's unnecessary. With Biden getting us out of Trump's COVID fucking economy, we were on the way out. We were done with severe hardship. We were only dealing with inflation predominantly at the grocery store because the mega food corporations, just refused to lower prices. They were price gouging. That's what Kamala was telling us. And you had some retailers still doing it, but the market was correcting itself because you can go without, this glass case or, this, I don't know, what do they call these things that you put like your cups on so it doesn't screw up your table, right? Or I didn't have to get this iPhone holder, right? You could do without that, but you couldn't do without apples, right? You know what I mean? You can't do without food, right? So, just supply and demand and capitalism was straightening out the retail system, but food was not getting straightened the fuck out. And it was an issue. But otherwise, the economy was moving. We weren't afraid. Americans are entitled and impatient. Sorry, guys. And they need to blame someone. And Biden did a lot of things wrong. So, they blamed him and they blamed Kamala and they thought they elected this idiot again. But what worries me, as Justin Wolfers was talking about when he was with Waj Ali earlier today, or yesterday, I saw a recording of it live, was that Trump doesn't have a basic fundamental understanding of what a trade deficit is. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't get it. Justin called it a freshman level understanding of basic economics of what a trade deficit is. And Trump hates trade deficits because he talked about the fact that Trump sees the economy like a store. He's like, and when you have a store, if you sell more than you have a deficit. If people are buying, I'm trying to remember how he explained it, because you have a deficit, a trade deficit in Trump's mind, if people are selling you more than you're buying, right? That was his point. If they're selling the U.S. more than they're buying, the Village Idiot calls that a trade deficit. And Wolfers is like, that's not even a freshman understanding of how international trade works. He's like, what you don't realize, What Trump he didn't call Trump stupid, I am, but what the idiot is incapable of realizing it is you hand them money. You hand these other countries money, these manufacturers and this, you hand them paper, and then they give you something. And that something is something that makes you happy. Right? The paper itself has no value other than the fact that we can use it to get something else. We can use that paper to buy iPhones, and iPhones make our lives better here in the US because we're a rich country and everybody has an iPhone, right? And you can use it to buy a mouse because you used it to buy a computer, right? And we don't make that shit here. So you give them paper and they give you stuff. And that stuff makes you happy. And when you have all that stuff in a country, it's indicative of the fact that you're a wealthy country. And when you have more stuff than you have paper, because when countries are giving you more stuff, right? Because you're giving them more paper, it means you can afford more. So what Justin was saying is now you have a surplus of stuff, right? You don't have a deficit of paper because the paper doesn't do anything for you. But all Trump can think of, because he's such a moron, is that they're taking advantage of us. They're winning, because he sees the country like a store, right? And my fear is now the idiot thinks that the Supreme Court is weak. And they're not giving him the opportunity to run the store the way he wants to. So I fear he's going to double, triple, and quadruple down on trying to control the store. And that's where my fear of an economic calamity, of another liberation day, of another run, of getting us in another situation that nobody sees coming, or that economists don't tell us about until it's too late, where everybody runs away from the US dollar. We're already isolated in terms of international trade, so we're in a much more vulnerable position than we were on April 2nd, on Liberation Day. A much more vulnerable position. And if this idiot goes crazy, and the idiots around him go crazy, and they do some batshit crazy thing with tariffs that we haven't even thought of yet to prove how big their dicks are, right? If they do that, then we no longer have the leverage that we had on April 2nd to say to these foreign investors, these countries that are investing in the US dollar, we're going to stop our shit right now. Let's all take a breath. You need to come back here and start buying our fucking treasuries, or we're not going to buy your goods, right? They may say, the Chinese may say, you know what? We're done. You got yourself in this mess. We're adversaries. We're happy to see you drown politically and financially. And guess what? We don't need you to buy our shit because we're selling $10 billion worth of our electric vehicles to the Canadians. And we're selling hundreds of thousands of iPhones to the Mexicans. Oh, and we've got this great deal with the Australians too for whatever. Clothing, right? Whatever, right? Oh, and you're going to withhold your soybeans? Oh, no, don't do that, Donald, because we fucking buy them from Brazil and Argentina now. Oh, by the way, dumbass, you gave Argentina $40 billion so they could sell us their soybeans and we could fuck your farmers. So we are in this incredibly precarious position, I fear. And if these idiots, and we'll take the economic pain that the country needs to suffer through because it was dumb enough to elect him so people can learn not to do it again. Right? But could we wind up in a devastating economic situation? And I don't know. And I want somebody who is an expert to tell me that I'm an idiot. I want to get fact-checked and find out that that's not anything to worry about. So I'm going to keep trying to get Justin on our show. Sooner or later, he'll come. Anyway, guys, 12:26. I probably need to go. Take care, Gamer Vet Dad. Oh, thank you, Tina. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. I know I rattled on incessantly today, and I don't know what happened here. I had a little bit of a technical faux pas there. I know I rattled on incessantly, and I thank you for your patience. If anybody is still out there, I can't see the feed coming in from Instagram, so I can't even see how many people are here from Instagram. I can see there's nobody here from YouTube, but I can't see how many are here from Instagram. I've got to work on that so we can see how Instagram is doing. But I love you guys. Thank you all for being here. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, one live at a time. I will be doing a lot of posting throughout the day today, everywhere. So please, if you follow me everywhere, follow me anywhere. If you're new to our community, or if you're out there in Instagram, please join us at xenocracy.news on Substack. If you are if it's something that is comfortable for you and it's meaningful enough to you, please consider becoming a paid member of Substack. Or if you're more comfortable being a free member, I appreciate that too. The paid members help me continue to do this work. But irrespective, thank you for being part of this community. And as always, thank you for the group therapy, because without you guys, I don't know how the fuck I do this. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Be well, everybody.